Hello, dear viewers. Oh, that's tickles. Come on, stop it already. I think that's enough for today. Enough diving into the whirlpool of gloomy melancholy. Let me tell you a story instead. One with a light touch of romance and hints of erotism. The first time I realized I had a serious weakness for a female sex was when I was about 10 years old and saw a Madonna music video on Cuban TV. Out of decency, I'll keep quiet about which body reaction led me to that realization. I think the song was La Isla Bonita. There were also a Cuban high school girls from the school across the street from our house. Since then, it's not that I completely lost my peace of mind. I mean, I had been falling in love tirelessly before that too, back in the kindergarten, in school, but this was something else. Something unfamiliar, yet deeply pleasant. Incomparable to candy, to getting presents for New Year's or birthdays, to the love and care of my grandmothers, or to exploring the ocean floor on the beaches of Veradero and Santa Maria. Of course, because of shyness, anxiety, a constant feeling of being out of place, and other rather unhelpful traits, I could hardly be called a womanizer, a ladies' man, or a charmer. But if a girl managed to catch my attention, my inner world would submit entirely to her image. My body didn't lag behind either. My legs would do weak, and my head would shut down completely. Then I grew up a little. I even started to look better. There was no trace left of that small, scrawny little penguin. Then I grew up some more. Even gloomy, unsociable metalheads like me had to go out in the world to search for a prey. I mean, to meet a girl. For a purpose like that, discos worked pretty well. Naturally, to avoid getting jumped by packs of local thugs, these raids were carried out in the company of athletic-looking friends, not too different from the native fauna of those discos. By the way, as you may have noticed, back then my head was still more or less in one piece. Apparently, the monkey was grazing somewhere far away with its fellow creatures, deep in the jungles of some unknown tropical land, and most cognitive functions were handled primarily by cockroaches. Oh yeah, discus. Although the success rate of these out things wasn't particularly high, I never lost my enthusiasm. Before her, attracting members of the opposite sex required me to bend over backwards. Sometimes, very rarely, it was the girls who bent over backwards to catch my attention. But with her, everything happened without any long, languid courtship rituals. It just sort of happened. I wouldn't call it love at first sight, and maybe it wasn't love at all. So, her name was Dash. No, that's won't do. The name absolutely has to be changed to preserve privacy. After all, she's now a married woman. Anyway, for the sake of conspiracy, let's call her Dana. At university, everyone unfit for health reasons and all the simulators from different departments were herded in one special PE group. That's where we first saw each other. Because of my deep dislike for any kind of public physical activity, I didn't really notice her at first. Later, a mutual acquaintance appeared, apparently also suffering from poor health, who introduced us. They were in the same group 1 year ahead of me. And then we ran into her group a few more times in the corridors of university buildings, but somehow without any real sparks. Then the summer exam session came. She finished her second year, and I finished my first. The next academic year started in roughly the same spirit. Besides, third-year students no longer had PA classes. However, one day it so happened that I walked her home. That was when I noticed that every one of her movements, gestures, emotional reactions obeyed some law of grace and perfection unknown to me. Compared to me, she was a goddess. Not because she was out of my league. Our levels were both high. It's just that our measurement scales existed in parallel realities. The words she spoke and the ones I crowed back in my internally adolescent voice dissolved into dark, unlit corners, scattered into steam in the cold autumn air. For me, they were no longer important. It felt as if I was already living through every single one of her movements. In the end, that time we simply said polite goodbye, agreeing that we both enjoyed the walk. And then I safely ended up in the hospital. In the hospital, despite the gloomy atmosphere and overall unpleasantness of the place, I wasn't bored even without that. And then Dana visited those grim walls. Well, not the walls exactly, me, and not in my dreams but in real life. And we went for a walk through the autumn forest surrounding the hospital. We reached the shore, stood for a while by the twisted, battered bench. Then she ran off to class, and I went back to continue my treatment. All my infatuation mostly happened in autumn. Maybe the favorite season of dead poets, with this melancholy, inspired the search for a kindred soul. The invisible barrier separating platonic attraction from the physical, we crossed it in her apartment.